Your episode actually performed super well.
Did it?
Yeah, the retention rate on it was crazy. People were listening to the end. They were absolutely shocked that a licensed therapist wanted to hang out with me. All right.
I always saw comments on YouTube, but I don't know if there was any other.
I mostly pay attention to the stats relative to the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
So whether the podcast is growing or not is definitely going to be based on that. The comment section on my shit is going to be pretty charged for a while, I think, until people get it out of their system, maybe. But Carolina, you're the expert when it comes to mental health, I'll say, within the brand. And we've decided to bring you on as one of our associate coaches. And I'm very excited to have you be a part of the team and be able to join us in those efforts. Yeah, for the listeners, can you give us kind of a once-over of the difference between therapy and coaching?
Sure. I mean, in a nutshell, coaching takes you from where you are to where you want to go. You know, it gets you unstuck, let's say. It focuses on more immediate goals, some long-term goals, but not too much. And it doesn't focus at all, although you could have moments of revisiting past experiences, but you don't tend to focus as much on past experiences, right? And therapy is I wouldn't say opposite. I don't like the word opposite because I do think in therapy you can get to where you want also very efficiently if you do a very deep internal work. But it revisits a lot of your past experiences, how those affected you, how those are playing out in terms of patterns and defense mechanisms and how you relate to the world and the filter that you see the world. So it goes a little bit deeper. So the process in therapy usually takes longer. The process of coaching usually is more targeted. It's faster. So it is important that you know what you want when you seek either professional. Because if you do want something quick and just to get unstuck on a certain theme or in a certain relationship, you know, coaching can be very efficient in that. And as opposed to therapy is more of like a well-rounded thing, like a whole shift of how you see the world. Mm-hmm. So, you know, which can affect all areas, but it takes longer.
Yeah. And would you mind sharing with the listeners kind of how to tell when you are in, I'll say, not the most compatible therapist's office? So I'll say that probably 80% of people who engage in coaching come with a long history of being in therapy, but coming away from that experience with a negative reaction, not anything that was really helpful to them. They talk about feeling judged by their therapist. What do you say to people?
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that I should backtrack and it's important to say is that there also is so many kinds of therapies, so many lines nowadays, right? So there are therapies that are more cognitive, which is more like coaching. There are therapies that are more Freudian, more analytical. There's therapies that are positive therapy, what we call them. So there's like relational therapy, there's psychodynamic therapy, there is Gestalt therapy, not so much anymore nowadays. But I think it's really important, first of all, for you to research the line that your therapist works with, right? So what kind of line and what does it promise and where does it work best? Because now we have statistics, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, it seems to do very well with borderline personalities or so what we call borderline personalities. And other types of therapies seem to do better with other types of manifestations. So that's one thing I would first suggest. And second of all is really research that therapist in terms of personal background, beliefs, and are there religious beliefs behind it? You know, is he or she part of a community that could skew a little your therapy into a direction? It shouldn't. I think that all therapists all over the world, and this is pretty generic, are trained or should be trained at least to provide the client or the patient with a very neutral environment, because that's where healing happens. You cannot have healing happen where like we said, where judgment exists, right? Because the judgment already exists in your head. You're shaming yourself all the time, and most people are. So that the healing only starts when you create a neutral. But therapists are also human, and they're also nuanced, like we said in our last episode. And sometimes they do come with an unconscious or conscious agenda for some reason. And associations should be wary of that, because some associations do not allow in certain countries. Like you can actually, I don't know how it's in the States, I think it's by state, right? But you can actually denounce somebody for being skewed in one direction or for making you do something that you don't want to, right?
Right.
And believing, yeah.
Yeah. You had mentioned healing.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people who come into our network are very interested in this healing word. It sounds like something that would provide relief. Can you kind of expand on what healing actually is?
Yeah, I think healing is a lot of self-awareness and how your patterns, or how your relational patterns, how your thought patterns play out, and being able to accept them, change them, or accept those that you cannot change, and change those that you can. So it's
Yeah.
really a self-acceptance, I think, journey in many ways. And I think the word healing can be misleading, because it's like you're cured, and I don't think you're cured ever from being human.
Yeah.
Being human is a continuous flawed experience, because nobody is ever perfect, and we come to learn, and we can only learn when we make mistakes, right? That's it. We stop growing if we're perfect. So I don't think it's healing, but it's becoming more self-aware, so that the transitions that you go through in life, whatever they are, whether it's a divorce or having a kid, maternity is a major transition, you go through them a little bit smoother, and not with so much shame and self-hate and automatic responses. So that's part of what really healing is, so that I know why I'm doing these things that I'm doing, and I understand better how to meet my needs and meet the needs of society. Yeah, that are requiring me to do this or that, or I want to pay this price, or when I do not want to pay this price, but it's me, I'm deciding that. So yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think? So I remember when I first engaged therapy, I was probably like in my early 20s, and feeling like the therapist was an authority figure in my own life. And in that way, I wasn't really able to reap the benefits of therapy until much later, once I kind of realized, like, oh, this is a service I'm paying for. This isn't like authority in my own life to tell me what to do next. And I know that a lot of people within our network will come to us and say, well, my therapist said, and so I did. What do you think about having a therapist be the center of your decision making? And how do you get away from that?
So you were saying that when you were younger, you had this sensation that she was wiser, probably, right? Or
yeah, that she
wiser,
had it more together than I did.
And I think therapists exert an extreme power, and it's true. And I wish that all professions that had that much power over people, like judges or doctors or psychologists, had a maybe more time to mature, in the sense that they were able to understand that power is incredibly sensitive and incredibly, just incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? And power is a tricky thing, right? Because it can really go up. It's so easy to control somebody else's life if somebody is willing to give you their life.
Right.
So I think that part you don't learn that in getting your license as a psychologist. You don't learn about power and how that term, not really. I mean, you learn that you have to have boundaries, right? And you have to not to call your patients after hours, or have them not call you. So you do put boundaries so that power is limited, but there's no real training on talking about what does this mean. And it's true that most people come with that assumption that psychologists are naturally wiser or naturally have more together. And really what they are is just, like I said, a vehicle so they serve you. They should be serving you. It's not the other way around, right? It's not like they should be dictating what you're saying, but they are a vehicle for which you can just breathe as if you've never breathed before anywhere else, like that you have that liberty. Like they should be the like safeguard that environment so that you can think for yourself.
Yeah.
They should safeguard that environment so that you can come to your conclusions, to understand that this has no judgment, that it has this space is absolutely safe. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that there are some therapists who are better at creating that caring, safe space for people in the midst of an affair. And there are others who really like to shame and guilt people into making a decision that they don't want them to make. So I can think of this one coaching client who he was going to a counseling service through his church, and his church was trying to convince him to go no contact with his affair partner, focus on his marriage. And one of the ways that he did that was this particular counselor had asked him, well, don't you love your children? Like he started to use the children as the motivating force in this guy's life. And he's like, yes, of course. And he goes, and you'd take a bullet for your child, wouldn't you? And why can't you just think of it like this? And I just think decisions that are motivated from a place of guilt or shame or fear usually are not the sustainable decisions that we make. And why do you think that people want to motivate other people by using shame, fear, and guilt?
Because that's the easiest shortcut to control. That's the easiest shortcut to control. Shame and guilt, right? Again, religions do that all the time because it controls the masses. And any narrative that has guilt and shame, you're constantly being told that you're not worthy. So you're not worthy. You have to do something to be worthy, to be liked, to be accepted, to belong, right? You've got to adapt so that, and in this case, of course, in the community, the religious community, right there, church, right? This is what you have to do to adapt. So it is the easiest way. But again, I find it funny that anybody calls that counseling. Maybe it's counseling in the traditional sense of the word, like religious counseling, true, right? The priests do it all the time, and the Catholic priests would love to counsel. But it's not a therapeutical process because
No. And you know what? One of the things that you and I talked about originally, or maybe, probably during our first conversation, I was like, there's profound catharsis in sharing your story and not tailoring it for anybody else. What do you think about, catharsis and healing and how that kind of goes hand in hand? Or in your mind, does it not go hand in hand?
Well, it does, because catharsis is shameless. So again, healing or the therapeutical process only happens in a shameless container. There's no shame. You can put it all out. You can dump it all out, and nobody's going to pick it and, this part is nasty. Oh, this part we don't want. This part it. And when you see it all out, you understand your identity better, and you accept yourself better, and want to accept yourself better, and you're not fighting against yourself all the time. Then, ironically enough, you start becoming more efficient in the way that you relate to the world.
Yeah, totally.
So
I completely agree.
Because
that is the benefit of sharing your story, I think. Yes. Being able to feel like you do belong in the world, and that your presence is important. And all of the toxic narratives that are stuck inside of your head are really the things that are creating the most suffering in your life.
Yes. Yeah, and all narratives that humans create are to belong.
If you are the other woman in your relationship and you love this podcast, you would love the Other Women community. The Other Women community is a membership program designed to help other women just like you reclaim their relationship with themselves and heal from their affair. We provide a safe and supportive environment for you to open up and talk about your experiences. We give you the tools and resources you need to grow into an authentic, empowered individual. If you're ready to take the next step in your healing journey, head on over to theotherwomanandthewife.com/community to learn more about the membership and all it has to offer.
Yeah. And hey, did you go from therapist to coach, or did you do it kind of simultaneously? And what do you enjoy about being a coach?
I did my clinical psychology major first, and then I worked in Brazil as a volunteer, actually, psychologist for a while I was working with the International Labor Organization with other projects. I was doing kind of parallel. And then when I returned to the States, when I went to live in the States for a while, I decided I wanted to do a coaching certificate, because a lot of what I experienced also in the International Labor Organization made me think, you know what, we need more coaches inside organizations. So that's how I went through the executive coaching first training, thinking how this organization, which was a beautiful organization in theory, and it is, and hasn't, but it's the International Labor Organization. So it's always promoting decent labor standards and eradicating forced labor and child labor and all that. But it was a very toxic environment to work in. So how does that, it's a double standard of what you're saying that should be, but why is it happening internally? And so that's how I got interested actually in coaching, because I really wanted to do organizational coaching and team coaching and stuff. And I did that for a while. And then team coaching and organizational coaching really is relational coaching. So it kind of went into relational coaching. And then simultaneously, I did other certificates within my psychologist line, right? My therapeutical line, like EFT and other certificates. So I was at some point doing both. Yeah. Like more executive coaching and also working with individual clients for their journeys. Yeah.
And what do you enjoy about being a coach?
I think with being a coach, you're able to maybe celebrate more the achievements of your clients, just because you're really focused on those goals and you feel like a team. In therapy, you're more neutral. So you don't want to give that impression exactly. You don't want to exert that control that whatever is coming up is, oh, this is good. So you have to do only that. So because it's not goal-oriented, you're not the one you can't bring up the goals. Get it? So in therapy, like you're just really a receiver of a lot of stuff that's coming out. And as a coach, you can be more proactive because the goal is established, or should be, right, in the beginnings of the sessions. And so you can put yourself out there more and then celebrate those little wins with your clients. So and also how fast things can change is also very obviously satisfying to any professional. Therapy can take years. It can also feel very, my goodness, did we just go backwards? What happened there? You feel like something, like your client completely regressed, and actually that's just part of the process, the cycle. And in coaching, you have a more linear, not always, but a more linear process. I don't know if that's how you experience it as a coach.
I freaking love being a coach because, it does that, like the word that you use, the team thing. Like I definitely feel like I'm on my client's team and I'm naturally a good supporter. And so becoming a coach was like a very natural fit for me. And it's definitely been the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life, for sure.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, I know that a lot of the listeners, from the feedback that we've received, they really value your credentials. Can you maybe give the listeners an idea of what books would be helpful to them if they are in the midst of an affair with, I'll say, thought life management and being able to redirect their attention and stuff like that?
What books? Listen, it's not so much about affairs, although Esther Perel's books are amazing in terms of, let's forget the name of the book.
And Captivity.
Yeah, Dating in Captivity.
Mating, I think. I think it's Mating in Captivity.
Terry Real, which is another psychologist who talks about it, is a relational therapist, and his books are amazing. The Modern Marriage, because the affair is not only about the affair, it's about how you connect romantically to any partner. When an affair is happening, it's because you're not being able to connect romantically in the most efficient way. These books really talk about again, relations and what's happening with the modern world and what expectations do we have of our partners and why that is becoming so difficult to meet and what it's creating. Besides Terry Real and Esther Perel, I also like Hold Me Tight is a very good book.
Who's that by? I don't think I've ever heard that.
Susan, God, I'm like terrible with names, huh? I'm really good with content. See that? So it can, yeah. Hold Me Tight.
Hold
And
Me
they have
Tight.
a workbook, which is really amazing.
Did you read these things? You know,
Yes.
like a lot of people, here it is. Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. I feel like a lot of people who are in an affair together are like, oh, we need to like do all these things together. Did you do things together or did you do things independently?
You mean therapy or?
No, like reading books and educating yourself. Like, was that something that you pushed on to your
No.
partner?
Yeah, no, I didn't push on, but he was very interested. So that flew very naturally. I think that there's no formula, to be honest. Oh, another book is Untamed.
Oh,
So-
yeah, that's a good one. Glennon Doyle, for sure.
Yeah, it's such an amazing book to read, especially if you're having an affair and things. But with my partner and I, we were very dedicated at understanding what was going on with us, like why we were making the choices we were making. And we both very naturally just wanted to do it together. So we did a lot of the worksheets together. We did coaching together. We read up. Terry Real was one of the books we read together, 2 books actually. And then there was like questionnaires and we did them, but it was never pushed. And I don't think I would. Nowadays, obviously, and this was a lot in the beginning because I feel like we were, it's like you're building your company, your new companies, right? So what are the values? What are the missions? Like what's going on? What do we want from this? What's our goal as a couple? What's our goal as a blended family? So all these things were really talked through and that helped immensely, I think, in our process. Of course, 5 years in, it's life takes over and we haven't been doing as much as the reading and the keeping up with all the training, although we are going to a retreat in Switzerland. So we do try to go to retreats and meditation and just learn more things about ourselves. And we do it together mostly, in our case.
That's lovely. I love that. Oh, amazing. Okay. Well, I feel like you gave us a really good rundown on the differences between coaching and therapy and what you can expect out of coaching. And I know that demand will be high for your coaching services. So I'm excited to have a platform that has you on it as well. And I'm excited to see what's next for us as we team up.
Thank you, Chelsea. Again, I think the work you're doing is very important. So I'm excited to be on the team. And
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you've made it this far, you're likely someone who is invested in the journey of being the other woman. We understand that this can be a difficult and complex experience, which is why we offer guided coaching to help you heal and move forward. We encourage you to explore the links in the episode description or visit theotherwomanandthewife.com/coaching to learn more about our exclusive coaching program and apply today. Thank you again for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.